Welcome to Timberland Farms. My name's Anthony, and behind me is my 1968 Case 580 CK Construction King backhoe. If you're not familiar with this machine, I have made a playlist of the transmission rebuild on this. As you can see, it's got a fresh coat of paint on it, and today's the day where we're going to get it back together. So I went out and got some high temperature, 2000 degree temperature paint, and I coated the exhaust stack. I'll get to the exhaust manifold once I get some tape on that. I'll get the hood off, get the exhaust off, all that. Went and got some touch-up rattle cans, and these are very, very, very close. You can't even tell. It goes on there, it looks like it's a lighter yellow, lighter orange, but as soon as it dries, you cannot tell the difference. That is amazing. So I got 2 cans of that. And then right here I have that seal kit. So this seal kit came with the O-ring for that plunger. It came with another gasket. And then it came with some snap rings, as well as those 2 seals on the end of the shaft, I do believe. They look like snap rings. They're kind of like a snap ring seal type of deal. We're going to look inside of the transmission as well, see if that's got any abnormal wear. But this should be everything that we're going to need on top of the other gaskets and stuff that I just got. I also picked up a clutch steel. We're going to measure this and see the thickness of this and see if the other ones show excessive wear. So now we have a baseline to go off of. The clutch frictions are 0.003 of an inch thinner on the used ones than the new ones. So as a total of 14 of them, it comes out to be like 0.05 of an inch of difference. So there is some wear on them, and I pardon the wind noise and everything. I still don't have my microphone. It's sent out to be repaired. It's covered under warranty, I do believe, and I'm waiting for that to come back. So this is part 5 of my Case 580 CK transmission repair videos. You can go back and look through they're the most recent videos. I also created a playlist. If you're just coming to this channel new, there's a playlist for the Case 580 CK transmission repair. There's a whole bunch of videos that explain from very beginning all the way to where we are today. And on top of transmission parts, I went ahead and got some bling for the tractor. So these are brand new gauges. So this is a tack gauge with an hour meter built in. It says Case in it. It is lighted, has a little incandescent light bulb right there. I also picked up a fuel gauge, as well as an oil pressure gauge. This has, all of these say Case on them. They're not OEM, they were kind of cheap. They should do me well. These were $25 on eBay. I am not affiliated with them, but I'll leave a link in the description below. Here's an amp meter. I'm not sure how to wire all this stuff up, but I'll be rewiring the backhoe completely. And then last and not least is the temperature gauge, and this came with a new wire on it. None of the other gauges came with wiring, and no wiring harness was provided with this kit. Just the gauges and the temperature sensor and wire. So I'm excited to put these in. We'll get these things put in because it's nice and easy, and wait for my dad to arrive because I'm probably going to need help with the transmission. All right, so here is my tack gauge and my hour meter. And set that into place. Get our bracket to go underneath of that. I don't want to scratch the paint up either if I don't have to. And then we have our fuel gauge here. So the fuel gauge from the stock factory location is right here. Make sure that's clocked good too. And we'll get our bracket. This has to orient a certain way to make room for all the wires on there. Grab our 2 nuts. So these gauges are only finger tight right now. It looks like the fuel gauge needs to be rotated a little bit. Easy peasy. That's nice and straight. Now that's straight. And then we have an oil pressure gauge, an amp gauge, and a coolant temperature gauge. So a factory location for the oil temperature gauge is right here. See if we can stuff this whole group of wires in here. So now we can look at that, make sure that's not crooked. Rotate that just a little bit and then tighten it up. All right, now we have oil pressure. Oil pressure did not come with this tractor. This used to be a hydraulic pressure gauge. I wonder if I could find it. Well, I can't find the original hydraulic clutch pressure gauge, but so this leaves us with a conundrum. We want to put that factory gauge back in the factory location. We want to change it out for an oil pressure gauge. We want to put an amp gauge. I don't know. So I'm thinking actually to put the clutch pressure gauge there, set this here, and then set this here. So we'll have a whole bunch of gauges. We'll have oil pressure, we'll have amps, we'll have temperature, we'll have clutch pressure, fuel gauge, and the tach with the hour meter. So all together we have 4 gauges here. This came with 5, and we'll have 6 gauges on the dash cluster. I have to make sure that we have ample room right here on the back side, which I am almost certain that we do. So then we're going to have to go through and make a wire harness, put a positive on all of these, and then make sure we have a ground on all of the studs. So we'll have to make a wire harness that fits 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 positives, and then 6 negatives. So 6 positives go off here, and then 6 negatives that go off of one of these studs here, because these are grounded off of the body. So I think I'm just going to drill holes in these. Not quite sure exactly, but the more gauges the better. The more information you have, the better. So we'll have oil pressure, we'll have our transmission pressure, we'll have our fuel level, we'll have our temperature, and then we'll have our tach with our hour meter. We'll have all of these, plus we'll have a couple dummy lights I'll find on eBay. They're not going to be original. These are the original dummy lights. These are spring held, and you quarter turn out of this notch and this divot, and then these rest inside of here. These have to be oriented and clocked right. They have a little indent here that sticks out and goes into that, and then they drop into place. I figured I'll get new ones of these while I'm at it. The spring goes on the back side. Find that little dimple, and that locks that into place, that dimple. But I'm going to sit here and think on this before I go ahead and do anything. Let's move on to the transmission. So we just went through and replaced all the seals in here. It came with the steel seals. Let's see if I can find another one. It came with new ones of these. So we replaced 4 of them, 2 on either side, either acting piston. We got those replaced. Replaced the O-ring inside of there and a second square O-ring in there. That's back together. And now we can focus on our clutch assembly. This is the reverse pack. We'll take this off. There's this round pin that keeps this clocked so it doesn't rotate. There's a half moon indent here, and then a half moon indent on the other side. So then these are the frictions. We'll take all them off and then set our seals aside. And they're progressively getting uglier and uglier as we go. That goes over here. We'll pull this one aside because that's the worst looking one. So this is one of the worst looking ones. We measure this. It's right at like about 59 thousandths. And you take a new one and go measure that. It's about 63, 64 thousandths. So then you add that up. That's a 3 to 5 thousandths of an inch difference between new and old. And you add that up over 7 friction plates, and that makes a huge difference. So let's get all these in one stack, and then we'll measure the thickness of a total stack of clutches. It should be about 21 to 27 thousandths, I think. So this is right at 25 thousandths of an inch. Well, it's going to be more than that, but we'll just take a note because they're going to be pretty similar. So that's right at about 26 thousandths, 26 thousandths. Squeeze that pretty good. I don't think it's going to be off a whole 100th. And that's about 50 thousandths. So we're about 25 thousandths of an inch thicker on the new ones than the old ones. I mean, you can't really see that difference on these, but that might be enough to cause us transmission failure. This stack is about as thick as 6 of these guys. 7 is equivalent to 6 of these, so that might be our issue. But then again, our square O-ring might have been the issue. Our round O-ring could have been the issue, as well as these sealing rings. These could have also been the issue. So we can go ahead, put our new friction on here, and then our old steel. So I got one steel. It was supposed to be a kit of 12 of them. They're sold individually, and they're $30 a piece. And these are actually a 1,000th of an inch thicker. The old ones are thicker, so we're going to use the old ones. So flip back and forth between friction and steel. Another friction. Another steel. Make sure there's no dirt and grime on these guys. Go ahead, flip this guy on here. So we got to clock this and rotate it so then we can get our pin in. Let's see if we can trap that into place. And then 10. Number 8 is another washer.
This stuff comes later.
Yeah, that's on the other side.
That's on the other side.
Yeah, repeat it all over again on the other side for the forward clutch pack. And number 3. So now, like I said, we just put on 5, 4, and 3, which is washer, a thrust bearing.
Like there was something in there that covered that.
Well, you got 5, which is a washer, 4, that's a thrust bearing, and 3, that's another washer, then 2, which is this big bearing. And then you got 1, A, B, and C that are these seals pressed in there into place. Just gonna clean it up. Put those 3 sealing rings on it. Number 1, A, B, and C. Flip it over to the other side. Now we go ahead and repeat the other side. Place this guy on here. up to
Got
51,
snap-ons in here.
42.
Washers.
I think that does go in there. So I'm gonna have to take the bearing back off again.
Goes behind it.
This goes right here.
I thought you laid all this out just the way it came.
I did, but that wasn't labeled on here. When the exploded view of this was
order.
It's right here. It's 48, 47, 46. So we're missing. This is 46. This is 47. And 48 is this metal bracket right here. So that goes on the other side. Which I got to take that bearing off in order to get to it. All right, so we got our bearing off. We can take our thrust washer assembly out. It's oriented like that. And the drum can come up. And with our bearing. And we see it's already messed up. I'm not sure if you guys can tell, but the pin came out where it belongs. This rotated because we forgot to put the snap ring in. Put our bearing on that direction. And our drum. Drop things and break them. Group our thrust washers back on. Drum on. Dad just went and put a new starter on his 580K. And that assembly is all done with. Brake clean takes the paint off. So it's going to need some touch-ups. It takes the paint right off. Genuine case parts. Amazing, I got that in the first try. Remember, this was overhanging, so imagine I'll go this direction. Make sure the holes line up. On to the next piece on top of there. So here's our little G-tent ball. And then there's a spring. So, that oil looks good. It doesn't look bad at all. There we go. Fourth time's a charm, I guess. Uh-oh. Oh boy. Okay, that's back in place. Can't forget about that D-tent ball and spring. D-tent ball and spring. It clicks back and forth where it belongs. Flip this up where it goes while holding the spring. Uh-oh, I'm removing the gasket. Okay, that all lines up. Now for the real test, what bolt goes where? That won't reach. That will. I start off by thinking maybe these, I don't know, maybe it's one of these ones. Those don't reach anything. Maybe those are for this guy. Yeah, I think that's what those are for. I guess that's good for now until we get it into the tractor. Let's clean it up and get it a fresh coat of paint. And ta-da! I'll put another coat on it once this dries. So now we can pick up where we left off on this guy while paint dries. This is the original clutch pressure gauge. Can't really read it. I don't know if it actually works or not. So it looks like it starts reading at 140, which is in the green. But I could barely read that. All the other gauges are nice and shiny, so I think I'll just get a new gauge for it. So you can see this line right here. So this line actually goes onto this gauge here, so it's reading pressure off of this manifold, and it's bringing it up on the dash for you here. That goes there. So that means we have 2 extra gauges. I know the coolant temp is very important. Fuel not so much important because the fuel tank's going to be right here, right in front of the dash. So I could just lean over, open up the tank, look in it, see if it's got fuel. There is a baffle in there, and there is a pipe that goes down probably 4 to 6 inches. So you can't really see how full it is, but you can see that it's not empty. So fuel gauge would be nice. So I'm going to say I'm going to drill 2 more holes and put 2 more on here. So we go ahead and get this dried off. Clean spot. I'll also have to order some dummy lights to go in these holes here and some switches. Help protect the new paint a little bit. Man, I feel like I'm working with the Amish here. Back of the Stone Ages having corded drills. So weird. Let's see. Well, I'll have to clean it up a little bit with the burring tool, the air tool. And there we go. Now it's probably not going to fit now that I'm painting it. Well, gotta wait for this to dry, sand it down, try again. Guess that's the orientation they're going. We got our attack, hour meter, fuel gauge, clutch pressure gauge, temp gauge, ammeter, and our oil pressure gauge. We got the transmission in, that's all bolted up, and then we have the steering, the valve assembly, and the hydraulic hoses for the steering, the steel lines, painted them. They all go up to the orbital valve on the steering wheel. We've got the steering column mounted as well. I think it's time to put the fuel tank on. Man, that fits like a glove. So this stud's causing us a little bit of grief. We're going to take it out. Fuel tank is mounted. I've just put the dash on there just sitting. But look at this. Man, that looks so great. I got my oil pressure, my amps, temperature, clutch pressure. That gauge finally came in, the clutch pressure gauge. I'll leave a link in the description for that one as well. Fuel, my tack. Gotta put the other steering wheel on still. Boy, oh boy. Block it there and make sure that the torque converter is lined up. Just block it there and make sure that the torque converter is lined up. And the valve cover for you.
Put the washer on too?
Yeah, washer, lock washer.
Is there enough room?
Yeah, it goes on the black side.
Got a ratchet?
No. I got a wrench.
Looks like you're good then. You can do the rest on your own, right?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, I'm gonna go park the back.
You only get half a wrench. You gotta flip the wrench every single time. Here we go. Almost there. Yes, this is in real time. This is not sped up. Almost. There we go. Well, that's the last bell housing bolt. Not quite there yet. I want these things good and tight. I think that's good. That's as much as I can muster. And then we can put our hydraulic line back on. And this was no treat either. There we go. Good enough. Put this guy back on.
So this starter actually sits in the oil on the in the transmission. So I gotta clean up this surface for the seal. So the transmission is going to get brand new, the VP Racing Ultra J20A Plus from Tractor Supply. It's the cheap stuff. It's not 303. That stuff's obsolete anymore. So this transmission on this backhoe takes Case IH Hi-Tran. And so this is a Hi-Tran equivalent. It locks on there like that, and now we can fill it up. A bucket pump makes it so much easier to fill things like this. So we got a leak. It's right where the oil pan, this is the oil pan right here, meets the engine block and the bell housing here. So I guess I'm gonna have to drain it a little bit through this drain bolt and clean it up and put some more silicone on there. Well, I splashed some RTV on there. The other side looks way worse. I don't know if this is gonna hold. Highly doubt it. I cleaned the heck out of it with brake clean. Usually this stuff doesn't stick to oil, but we're gonna try. Otherwise we'll have to split it back in half again. Alright, let's cross our fingers, see what she does. I think that concludes that video. Tune in next week. I found a hydraulic leak off of the clutch pressure gauge. Never hooked it up, so that's leaking. You gotta adjust that. The throttle's linkage is not adjusted correctly. It wants to be like 3/4 throttle at an idle. So you gotta adjust that. I think it needs more hydraulic oil because it does like to hum. Haven't been able to test out, see if it actually moves or not. So, but it runs again. And we have clutch pressure, so that's a positive because it's just puking right out of that clutch pressure hose for the gauge. So that's working. Yeah. I think everything's going to work out with this thing. We've got to test out, see if this thing's actually going to move. But that's going to be next week's video. Stay tuned for Wednesday. I went to the Broome County Farm Bureau auction. There's actually another backhoe just like this one there. I went there today. It'll be Wednesday for you guys. Looks like it's in better shape than this guy. But it's sold for like $3,800, $3,800, somewhere around that range. I paid $1,200 for this guy, and by the time I'm done with this, it'll be a far better machine than that one at the auction. Had a little bit different hoe on it. This one's got a much larger hoe on the back, so it'll dig a lot deeper and lift a lot heavier stuff with it. It's got a bigger front bucket on it. The front loader bucket's a little bit wider on this guy, on mine. And this is not all original, but that one on the auction looked like it was pretty well all original. But as always, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe and stay tuned for more next Sunday. Hopefully we get this thing moving.